and a gate to protect my family. And I'm telling you, stuff happens down there. We're not making it up. Many of you have seen the pictures. They say a picture doesn't lie, but somehow in this room, pictures lie. So they said, no, Kruger, you can't come before here. You've got to meet with the city staff. So on February 9th, 2018, I met with Joe Bodie, I met with David Campbell, and we put together a plan to vacate that portion of it. So then I came before LPA. I mean, it was pitchforks and torches. And, you know, Jill and I, we do a lot of good in this town. We do a lot of good for charity. I've served on committees. I've done everything we could to be a good citizen, whether it's helping support the former YMCA or whatever. We always try to do the right thing. And so that's when all that happened in 18, and we saw the discourse. You know, we stepped back and we talked to people we knew. We talked to people in the city. We talked to council, and we prayed about it. And what should we do? And I said, I'm going to make peace with Sandy Trammell. We're going to figure out a way to give her what she wants. This is her proposal, option number 3. This is it right now. That's what we did. And on 10/14/19, Mr. Ketcher said, Ms. Kopp, Mr. Bodie, Louis Zunguzzi, I don't say his name right, Mr. Burgess, Joey Forgione, they were all on the call. They all heard her say, if Kruger does option 3, if he moves the driveway, then we can all be happy. So that's what we did. And then a week before LPA, we see all these signs, save Harbor Lane access, inferring we're taking it away. That's where the cease and desist letters came from. We're not taking away anybody's access to anything. You know, Steve Schmidt told me early on, he goes, Kruger, you ought to try to vacate that whole thing. Nothing good goes on down there. I said, Steve, I don't want to be that jerk. That's not who we are. We want people to come down there. We grew up poor. We want people who don't have the luxury of living on the water. We want them to come down and swim and YOLO board and throw a Frisbee and play with their dogs. We've never stopped anybody from doing anything. In fact, we met some really great friends that to this day, like the LaCours and the Seavers, you know, down there from doing that. So, you know, we've done everything. And these signs they're talking about, there's a lot of signs all over. I called my friend Ken Eggman. I said, hey, you've got a pink sign in your yard. You know, let me talk to you. He goes, what sign? I said, Ken, that sign in your yard. Kruger, I'm at work right now. There's no sign. I said, Ken, there's a sign there. He goes, take it down. They're trespassing. I took down the sign. I drove to Ace Hardware. By the time I came back home, there was another pink sign out there. And on these yellow signs, I called Glenn Shelley. Hi, Glenn, I want to talk to you about that yellow sign in your yard. Oh, did you put it there, Kruger? No, Glenn, I didn't put it there. Huh, maybe Chatham put it there. Chatham's a friend of mine. Well, I don't think Chatham put it there. They're putting these signs out. Half the people don't even know they're there. And that's true. There's a lady who's got Alzheimer's. Anyway, I'm going to ramble on. I'm not going to do it. We just respectfully request that you approve it. We have done everything right. We followed the letters of what council directed us to staff. We did everything staff told us. Now we're back to council. We've done everything the right way to do this to protect my family, but I would like Jill to speak for a moment. Thank you.
We have all determined that this row easement is unique, unlike most others within the city, thus creating false intents, usage, and hateful division of our community. In hindsight, the road should have been paved to the end when the road was first developed back 30s, whenever it was developed. It was a long time ago, but it was not. And now we have a horrific storm. But this is unlike a real storm, where a community pulls together to love, care, help one another. The storm has become nothing but. And why? When this row should be a beautiful blessing for all of us as a community to share. On record, with the city attorney, managers, code enforcement, and staff, Ms. Sandy Trammell, the self-community leader for the opposition, presented the opposing agreed solution to make all the neighbors happy. We, the city, and us, the Krugers, have listened to the voices of the community throughout all of this.
Knock it off, everyone. Keep your mouth shut. Be respectful of everyone in this room, including yourself. by being quiet. Continue on, ma'am.
You, the city, and us, the caregivers, have been through all the required permitting, several surveys, checked all the required boxes of the city's rules, laws, spent thousands of our dollars, wasted thousands of taxpayer dollars to include valuable time to hear the requests of the opposing, to come to an agreement that we could all be happy with. We want to be good neighbors. We have 6 kids. We want the kids to be able to come down there and enjoy this spot. We have never not wanted this. But now, they're wanting more. Because of false misrepresentation from Cindy Tremmel, P.D. Floyd, and I will not state the names of the few others due to the horrible threats against our family. It is inevitable that the opposition will never be satisfied with whatever direction the storm takes. They do not want to see through their provoked anger to the beauty and blessing that we all should be embracing, to be able to walk down there and enjoy that park, to see the water and see the sunset. That's what it's for. We don't want to take that from us. So please, in this nightmare of a storm, to where we all as a community can heal and look past the blind false truth, to where we all can see that this is the best and the most giving, safest solution for not us, but for all of us as a community. Tim and our family are asking that you do not deny us of our property rights, for you to honor our right to access and to be protected and be safe in our home. Please do not let the falsely led opposition sway you from representing and honoring your oath to the city and citizens that follow the rules, support, care, and give to our city. We do that. We love this city. We help the kids. We raise money. We have checked all the boxes. We have followed the path and direction of this city throughout this 2.5 years of a horrific storm that our family has gone through. I ask each of you, do you have a family? Do you have a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, a brother, a sister, a wife, and children? What is the ultimate, most important prayer you want for them? Health, safety, peace, love, a home that is your safe place to enjoy with one another in peace. Please put yourselves in our shoes as if we were your loved ones. What would you want? What would you fight and stand up to provide for your family? Please honor the right as a city, tax-paying, loyal, supporting citizen to access our property without being blocked, stopped, harassed, threatened. I have to look at a camera before I leave the house to see whether I gonna be approached and threatened. These people, it's wonderful that they come down there, but we live there 24 hours a day. Please let us secure our property and to honor our right to be safe in our home. Please end this nightmare for us all. Please, yes, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Council, at this time, I'd ask that you begin deliberating. If you have any more questions for staff or Mr. Ketchersid, feel free to ask those questions.
Any questions, council? Can I entertain a motion at this point?
Yes, you can entertain a motion at this.
Okay, what I think is appropriate under Robert's Rules of Order is I'll entertain a motion in a second, and then we'll begin deliberation.
Well, I mean, I'll make the motion for discussion.
Should it be a motion to approve or disapprove?
Skip, there's a recommended motion in the agenda material. Is that the motion you want to make? Could you read it, please, for the...
I'll move that City Council direct staff to install streetlights at the end of Harbor Lane and approve ordinance 20-07-CN on first reading and schedule the item for second reading with the following conditions. Putting up an opaque fence or barrier, including shrubbery or anything that could create a vision impediment to the remaining right-of-way shall not be allowed. Provide a unity of title to tie the two properties within 30 calendar days. Vacation does not preclude obtaining permitting for any improvements as a result of the vacation.
I have a motion.
I'll second it for now.
I'll have a second. Open for discussion. Go ahead, we're
So,
discussing
and
now.
I don't know if I need to ask Mr. Ketcherson or if I need to ask who I need to ask, but so we've heard so many times, and so many people have talked about this, and even the applicants have talked about this, that road should have been blacktop and finished all the way down. Is that a suitable solution to this problem? If the city were to do that?
Are you asking, Councilman, that is it suitable to my client, or is it suitable to the public, or is it suitable to the city?
No, is it suitable to you or your client?
That is not the pending request before the council that is in the petition, and whether it should or shouldn't have been done whenever Harbor Lane was paved, I mean, that was a decision made by the city at that time. I don't have any comment as to whether it should or shouldn't have been paved all the way to the water.
But if it were paved, if the city decided to do that, would that then solve the problem that Mr. Crediger is having by then enabling him to put the gate up there at the property line, and he can drive all the way down?
Assuming folks did not park in front of that gate, yes, it would.
Is that all? All right. Kyron? Oh, Rodney, go first.
It seems to me that safety is the number one concern. And I don't know how vacating this right-of-way, it gives them the safety that they're looking for. I think if the asphalt was extended on however far it needs to go so that they can put a driveway to their home, and then they can put a fence up, a gate up, turn it into Fort Knox, then they have their safety. That's the biggest thing that I've heard tonight is they're worried about their safety, and that would solve it. I won for the last 6 years being up here. I've never favored vacating a right-of-way. And I've really tried hard to listen tonight to everyone. And I've sat here and I've went back and forth with this particular one, and to me it just seems like it comes down to safety, that they want to be able to put a fence and a gate up. So let's extend the asphalt on down however far it needs to go. If the residents lose their park, then they lose it, because we have to extend the asphalt on down and let them put their gate up. Put a gate and a fence, however high they want to put it. So that's my 2 cents for now, Myron. Thank you.
All right, I got Mr. Marlowe, then Ms. Ramswell. Before we go on, Ms. Kopp, the whole issue about extending the right-of-way and stuff is not what we're addressing at this time, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Marlowe. Ms. Ramswell, you're
Okay.
next.
What really upsets me right this minute is the fact that there's a person in this room that was trying to show their emotion and what they felt about it, as other people did earlier, Yet I hear the moans and groans of, well, I won't use the words, but I'll use the letters BS. Because everybody has a right to certain things. They're just asking for the right to be able to ingress and egress their property without having to be blocked in or blocked out if they're trying to get home. I understand where the staff is coming from about the issue is to grant him the right of way or not grant them the right of way. I've heard everybody come up with reasons why we should not give the right of way, but I haven't heard solutions to the problem other than what we can't do right now until we make a vote on whether or not to give them or not give them that. What it's come to is something that I have hated in the last 16 years I've been on this council. Neighbor against neighbor. We've become a community of, I got mine, but nobody else can have theirs. Ms. Kopp asked me a question earlier about something I was planning on presenting as a thing about whether I should call a particular piece of property worthless or not. In one sense, it's worthless to somebody. In another sense, it's not worthless to somebody else. When we have something that was platted long before a lot of us were born, especially me, 1939, I definitely wasn't around, there was a purpose and a reason for that to be platted that way. The same with 1st Street, where Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp sits now. 6th Street, where we did this same identical thing. We vacated some right-of-way at 6th Street. And who did we do it for? Danny Warfield's family. It was a simple thing. It was a dead end. It went nowhere. It was a safety issue, and the council at that time had no problem with it. In a perfect world, people wouldn't go down there and turn around. People would not go down there and park where they shouldn't park. People would not go down there and do things they shouldn't do in a perfect world. But we don't live in a perfect world. I can put all the no parking signs I want down there, and I guarantee you somebody's going to park in front of it. And I'll be the first to admit, yesterday I parked in front of a no parking sign when I was there for the reasons of being able to look and see what was going on. It was wrong for me to park there. It's wrong for anybody else to park there. It is a road. It is a right-of-way and a road. It is not a parking space. No matter what it is, you cannot bar ingress and egress from a piece of property. I mentioned earlier the fence. The remains of what was there that Mr. Kruger put up, I didn't see were harming anything or anybody. There was no view problem. There was no issue. The gate was there to keep people from parking in the driveway so he could get in and out of his property. The little fence that was there was so people wouldn't traverse or drive their car right through that little fenced area and park where they shouldn't be parking. It's not a park to begin with. If you want to call it a park because we put a bench and a table there, I can probably make a motion that the city remove it. Access to the beach. Well, there is a small portion of beach there, if you want to call it that. But we have other areas in Joe's Bayou that can be done the same way. What they're asking for is not unreasonable. What they're asking for is the same thing that any citizen in this town would ask for. I said earlier about if I parked in your driveway and you couldn't get out of your house, what would you do? You'd call the tow, you'd have somebody tow me, and you would be within your rights. They're within their rights to be able to have ingress and egress unobstructed from their property, just like you or me or anyone else on a different size property. So where do we go from there? We stop looking at our self-centered selves and our NIMBYs, and we think about everybody at one time. I've had people ask me why I work for a certain person. Nobody's offered me a better job in the last 15 years. I'm still waiting. I got a lot more I could do, but I haven't been offered a better job than what I have with who I'm employed by. I may not agree with my employer, but at the same time, I have to provide for myself. In that respect, it's the same with the Krugers or same with anyone else. You deserve the rights to your property. You deserve the right to be able to ingress and egress your property and enjoy it. I'm thankful that I'm not part of an HOA because I've seen so many HOA problems where they tell you can't barbecue on this grill, you can't do that, and you can't do this. Well, that tells me right now I don't ever want to be in a place where an HOA. There's no HOA there. There's a lot of citizens in that area that just want to be able to enjoy what if you want to call it a park. The Krugers just want to be able to enjoy their property, which they have the right to. You know, I have no problem with what they're asking. If it doesn't make it, I have something else in mind. And that's all for now.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. And, you know, I think it's important for all of us to recognize that we live here as neighbors, friends, co-workers, everything. And no matter what decision this council makes tonight, it's not going to be popular with half of the folks here and half of the folks in the community. It's a really tough spot to be in. You know, a couple folks spoke and they noted the fact that people are watching. And, you know, I think we know that very, very well. I know that extremely well. The decisions we make up here are often not popular. I received a death threat on my child a couple years ago because of decisions I make up here. Does that mean I'm going to let it alter me doing what I think is correct? Absolutely not. And so I say all that because clearly decisions we make are very difficult, but we have to weigh the evidence. We have to weigh what we're seeing, what research shows us. And of course, we have to weigh what you all are saying in there as well. And so I look at this piece of property. It was carved out of another one. So it did not have the road going down to it because it was part of another piece of property. Now, when it was separated out, hindsight's 20/20, right? The city should have extended the road, but there was no need at the time. Then there were owners there, and then we needed it, and it wasn't done. When I think about that, the fact that Ms. Allen, who owned the property before the Krugers did, she knew she had to have access to the property, just like Mr. Kruger or anyone else who had purchased that property has to have access to a property. And it's the city's obligation to provide access from a roadway to a person's property. So we had to do that. Mr. Kruger applied for and received a permit. Ms. Allen applied for and received a permit before he did to put in a driveway roadway so that he or she would have ingress, egress, access to their property. Now, I will say that the engineer he wasn't the engineer, but the former employee with the city that issued that, maybe he shouldn't have issued it. I have issues with some of the issues surrounding the issuance of the permit. But even with that said, it was issued. Okay? Mr. Kruger had a permit, and he did what the permit allowed him to do. I would have done the same thing. If I needed access to my property and the city gave me a permit, yay, well, let's put in my access. He had permission. Now, he's done everything the right way from what I can tell. He's communicated regularly with the city, with city staff. There's a whole trail of emails that I've received and seen, both old and new, dating back even into when the Allens owned the property and were seeking to build that access way. And everything is, yes, it's permitted. Yes, go ahead. It's going to be this wide. And the drawings remain consistent. Even back to when Ms. Allen had applied, they're all relatively that same pattern and that same section of the road. Could it be smaller? Could it have been more south and attached to the property? Yeah. But Mr. Kruger had a permit to build it the way he saw fit and the way he presented it, so he could do what he wanted. So I'm not faulting Mr. Kruger. He had all the permission in the world. If I fault anyone, it was the former employee here that perhaps should not have issued that in the way it was issued. But with that said, there is a permit from 2017, sir. And there's also one from 2014. And so when I look at that and the fact that there has been regular communication, there was an existing permit, there was an existing hold harmless from the Allens that included pavers, it appears every T was crossed, every I was dotted on the applicant's side of things. And I put myself in that position, and I'd be so irritated if the city had told me I could do something and then I did it, and, you know, heck, I understand everybody being upset. I mean, this is your access, and you're used to having a wider span. But the fact remains, he had permission to do it. And so, really, what I would like to see in the whole scheme of things is, how do we come to a solution? Just like Mr. Marler said, what can we do to make this right for everybody? And I saw, I think it was Mr. Trammell, I can't even remember now, whoever it was that had the other option, and I requested it go to Mr. Ketcherid. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name, but whomever it was, I really wish that we could even delay this, but I see how much time it is, and I'm not even going to suggest that we do that, but I would really like to see if something could come to fruition between the parties. But how about the city do something to make things better for everybody else? Why don't we look at the other accesses along that line that have never been improved? Why don't we improve those so that there's other ways to access that shoreline? Why don't we improve this one? Clear out the brush, make it a beautiful entry and access for everyone so that you're not obscured by your travel down there because of all the bushes and everything that exists there now. Let's clear that out. It may be pretty, but y'all want the space. You want to be able to get down there and enjoy the water. Let's do that. You know, the issue with the other side being built, well, unfortunately, that was way before my time. There's nothing we can do about that. But let's do what we can now to make things better for everybody. The park will remain, the access, whatever you want to call it, the park remains, the access will remain. It will be a little bit narrower, but they've already said they're going to move it a little more southerly to create more space. And if we get rid of some of the brush and the bushes along the other side, we'll open that back up, and it'll be a little bit wider, even though it's still not going to be the whole entire 60 feet. But unfortunately, that's a problem that the city created. So let's find a way to make it better. Let's look at perhaps some of these things that I've suggested to try to really improve the area for everyone and create more ingress and egress for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I've made my mind up on this issue, but the one thing I'm going to say through this whole process is I didn't really care much for the jeering and sneering. Everybody needs to understand that regardless of the outcome tonight, and regardless of whether, obviously, we're going to make an up and down decision here, that some of you will leave happy and some of you will leave upset. And despite that, at the end of the day, this is actually a good example of democracy functioning. Each of you had your opportunity for redress, persuade us, and we're going to make a decision up or down. And we sit up here ultimately as citizen umpires to call the balls and the strikes. And it's tonight's like this that are the most miserable part of this job. For free. Heck, I'm running for county commissioner. I know I'm going to lose votes tonight just by making a decision. It's a rotten deal. It's a no-win. That's why I would have preferred this all have found a common, good, soft landing rather than an up and down vote. It really is lousy. And I don't know what the result of the next vote, of the vote we'll take in a moment will be. But I do know that I'll respect every council member's position, regardless of whether they agree with my ultimate position, because this has been a fair process. And it's a process that has functioned in the exact way it was intended to operate. It's by allowing adverse parties the opportunity to civilly, and that's what I mean by civilly, no jeering, no sneering. This was not supposed to be a cheerleading competition. This is supposed to be a respectful process. But we made it through. But it's important for it to be civil, because as Councilmember Ramswell alluded to, the night is going to end, and tomorrow morning the sun will rise, and we will still be neighbors, we will still be Americans, we will still be folks that have to put away our differences to find the common interests so that we can function and move forward. And that's the emphasis on tomorrow, because otherwise we're doomed. And a lot of you will leave upset tonight. I remind you that this is not a court of law. It's not. This is the process that we've got for redress. And a lot of you may leave tonight disappointed to feel that justice hasn't been served, and I'm going to remind you that in less than a few months, every single one of you will have the opportunity and dare say the obligation to seriously consider whether or not you want to run for one of these 4 seats. It's the obligation of everyone to serve and act as a shepherd to this community. And it's not easy. It is not easy, especially when the community cannot get along. So each of you will have your opportunity, if you want to run, to put your fingerprints on making this a more just and equitable community. I encourage you to think of that. We have a deeply divided community here tonight. I'm going to end this long-winded soliloquy, I guess, to ask each of you to remember each other's humanity and the right to disagree, and remember that if we stop participating in this process because of this decision tonight, and we stop participating in local government, we're doomed to the same dysfunctions of Tallahassee and Washington. And I don't want to go there. So regardless of which way it goes, we're going to be partners, we're going to be neighbors. I don't say that everybody will have to be friends, but we're all on the same ship. And if the ship starts sinking, we all need to start bailing, which means we have to continue to participate and maintain. So sometimes it's best to not try to improve the words of others when they've said it best, so I won't. So I'll just simply quote the wise words of Dr. King, and to remember that we must learn to live together as brothers, or we perish as fools. Mayor, I'm going to yield my time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Menchel.
Thank you, Mayor. Several council members have said that they'd like to have another option. But the land use attorney has said, and straight up, that we don't have that opportunity with what we're faced with right now. Okay, Mr. Kruger's staff attorney presented something. He was asked, I think, by Councilman Overdeer, if in fact this roadway would you be in favor of that? Well, that's not what we're here to vote for tonight, as the land use attorney has said. Mr. Kruger came here, we're voting on this, we're not voting on extending the road or any other options. With that said, the only way we could vote on that is to vote no tonight as an option, and that way we could enter a negotiation moving forward. But I'll go back to when we started this thing hours ago. Our attorneys said, you look at the evidence that's presented to you tonight and make an informed decision. Well, I'm going to say something that nobody else has said. We have been given a bunch of information's been provided to the city clerk that we haven't had an opportunity to review. In order for me to make a determination on what the validity of that stuff, I want to have an opportunity to look at that. There's been allegations made, if you will, or information presented on both sides, okay, for and against information Mr. Bailey has that we haven't had the opportunity to review. So this is certainly not going to be popular, but I intend to make an alternate motion to postpone this tonight until the next council meeting to allow us to have the opportunity to review all of that information. That way, we can make an informed decision. It's not fair to Mr. Kruger. It's not fair to the citizens presented this. That information was alluded to that could help either side, and allow us to make a more informed decision on what was said. So with that, I have a lot more to say, but I'll let it go at that. But I'd like to make an alternate motion that we postpone this until making a decision until the next meeting, and we be provided all information that was given to the city clerk.
All right, we have an alternate motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
And I have a second. I have a question. Is this in the realms of legal capabilities?
It can,
No, yeah. I was going to say it's legal, but you could also consider the evidence in between first and second reading if it's approved tonight. Obviously, if it's denied, you wouldn't.
Thank you.
One other thing I'd like to say, Mayor, you folks out here probably won't be here because we have a lot more to do when we're finished with this. But in regards to the illegal towing, one of the things on the agenda tonight, the city is going to have in their toolbox the ability to tow. So moving forward, when cars are parked illegally, we're going to be able to tow. That's on the agenda for later tonight.
Is that it, sir? Thank you. Mr. Overdeer, we have a alternative motion and a second. Go ahead.
But I just want to ask Mr. Ketcherson one more time. I just want to make sure I completely understood you, that if we did extend, if the city, for whatever reason, did decide to extend that road all the way down, and then Mr. Kruger's property would then have a gate at the edge of his property line now, would that be acceptable?
Without specifically asking Mr. Kruger, I can't really answer that question. But assuming that people did not park in front of that gate, because I think what you're talking about is a gate that would open parallel with his property line and not out into the right-of-way, so it would be blocked if somebody parked in front of it. Without specifically asking him that question, I can't truly answer it.
Okay, so do I need to ask him?
No, if you give me a moment, I can ask him, but again, that's not the request before you tonight.
I understand. In order for me to decide which way I want to vote, I need to know if that's an alternate solution.
I'll be happy to ask the question if you give me 30 seconds.
I just want to remind Mr. Overdeer, the motion now has changed. The motion is to extend, to stop this proceeding and reinitiate it at the next council meeting. Is that correct, Ray?
yeah, so right now there's a substitute motion on the floor to essentially continue this to the next council meeting. I would remind council that you will have the opportunity to review the material in between first and second reading if that's how the route you want to go as well, if the vacate is approved tonight.
The only thing I say to that is reviewing that information and validating one way or the other would determine the vote tonight. Okay, so I'm going to vote one way or the other tonight, get information that would say, I don't want to have to flip-flop. I'd rather have the information and make an informed decision.
I don't know that all of that information is new also. A lot of it, some of it may be new, but some of it may be duplicative. I haven't seen it all.
So,
There's also, I'm sure you're aware of this as a councilman, but there are time limits and deadlines for people to present stuff for package inclusion that is presented to you tonight. We had to submit all of our stuff by the 21st. We didn't get to show up tonight with a stack of new documents. So there's nothing laying on that table that came from the petitioner because we followed the rules that got us here today. And as far as if you're referring to the LPA, because that did sound, relatively significant, please bear in mind that Mr. Kruger has a right to be here tonight with or without a recommendation of approval for the LPA. The LPA is not binding on this council. They could have said no at that meeting, and we still could have elected to be here tonight.
And I'd like to respond to you, Counselor. The fact that I'm asking for that stuff may not be against Mr. Kruger. It may help Mr. Kruger, okay, in a sense that information provided was false, okay, and I want a chance to validate that.
And I didn't mean to imply that it was for or against. My only point was that the reason that there are deadlines is so that we don't have to sit here until past 10 o'clock on a Monday night, only to come redo it not only one more time, but 2 more times if you table this, because the second meeting is also a presentation, public hearing, just like tonight.
No, you're fine. If there's no further comment, we have a motion to extend this to the next meeting. We have a second. We've had discussion on that particular motion. I'd like to call it for a vote so we can move on, whether it's moving on tomorrow or moving on today. So, seeing no further discussion. You're not allowed. That motion is defeated. That brings us back to the original motion. Ray, would you like, well, the original motion is the one that was written, recommended by staff. Should we reread it, just to put everybody on the same page?
Sure. Ray, would you mind rereading the recommended motion for council?
I move that the city council direct staff to install street lights at the end of Harbor Lane and approve ordinance 20-07-CN on first reading and schedule the item for second reading with the following conditions. Putting up an opaque fence or barrier, including shrubbery or anything that could create a vision impediment to the remaining right-of-way shall not be allowed. Provide a unity of title to tie the 2 properties within 30 calendar days. Vacation does not preclude obtaining permitting for any improvements as a result of the vacation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, I'll finish the discussion now that my motion was, like Dr. Ramswell said, okay, Mr. Kruger abided by everything that the city was giving to him, plain and simple. For those of you all who have listened to me over this past year, you've heard me talk about the sins of the past. And unfortunately, the present staff is having to deal with what I term sins of the past. Mistakes, whether they be legitimate or accidental or intentional, stuff like that, has time and time again put us in a pickle. Whether it's contracts that we had that services weren't provided for, there's been time after time after time of items that were done, okay, by previous staff that we're having to clean up. Again, like Dr. Ramswell said, without beating a lot of in the ground. The bottom line is that Mr. Kruger was issued a permit. There's debate whether it's a permit or not. I've got copies of the permit here, okay? But we can't fault Mr. Kruger when he followed the instructions that were agreed upon by the city. Whether it's right or wrong because of the sins of the past, this is the hand we're dealt. Okay, so I agree with Dr. Ramswell.
But this ain't the final. Thank you, sir. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. With the motion before us now, the applicant cannot come forward later and apply for a permit for a fence or a gate. Is that correct?
He can come forward and apply for a fence or a gate unless you put a condition on there. But I believe the point of the request is to be able to put a gate on the property, as testified to by Mr. Kruger.
So it is with the putting up an opaque fence or barrier, including shrubbery and any other could be create a vision impaired remaining right-of-way shall not be allowed.
There's a difference between the gate and the fence there. Staff is talking about maybe prohibiting the fence for safety reasons because the view could be blocked, but not the gate.
If you put a gate up, then it had to be opaque.
I think it should say not opaque.
And he wouldn't be allowed to put shrubbery up.
You go with this motion, then it would be you could not put any fence or shrubbery that would negatively impact the view and cause a safety problem. But they would still be able to apply, and staff would look at the application and determine if it was violating that condition. And that condition does not include a gate as it's written.
Okay.
But doesn't opaque mean that you can't see through it?
I'm saying it should say not opaque. You
say
should be.
opaque.
You should.
can't,
It should say that you can see through it.
no, it says, putting up an opaque fence shall not be allowed.
Right.
So you can't
I
put
was
up a
telling
fence.
Rodney the intent was to be able to see.
And that's what the motion is, for them to
Correct.
only be able to put up a fence that you can see through.
Correct.
I don't see anybody else want to make a comment, so let's go ahead and take this motion to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. All right. Do we need?
Mayor, can I-
Do we need a break, or would you like to make
Mayor,
a break?
if we go on a break, a lot of these people are going to leave, and I'd like...
Go ahead.
I was on the losing side of that vote, but what I'd like to do is, Ms. Abear, would you come up to the podium real quick? I just want to have a very quick discussion and something that we can perhaps walk on to at least alleviate a portion of what is perhaps a bit of unhappiness. Is it possible to set up a opportunity at a meeting within the next few months with your committee, the Parks and Rec Committee, and invite the stakeholders from all these neighborhoods? If the council was to preliminarily authorize a $25,000 budget, would your committee and committee members be able to meet with stakeholders from the community to be able to bring back to council a series of amenities and improvements to that area, and tentative budget of $25,000? So we could talk about lighting, we could talk about improvements to the fish landing area, we could talk about improvements to the staircase, whatever you suggest. Do you think that would be possible?
I think that's a very good, it's a great opportunity, and I think Ms. Trammell and I don't know if she's still, she and I looked at a couple of other areas that are all grown over that could very easily become waterfront access and are a lot wider. But yes, putting in lighting, putting in some areas throughout that so we have more opportunities to get more of that, quote, beachfront that we have that are just wooded up right now.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we tentatively authorize a $25,000 budget to be set. We instruct staff to set up a meeting with the Parks and Rec Committee, and that we do our best to communicate with these shareholders the opportunity to come and help us improve the park. And we've set a $25,000 budget for it.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. If any further discussion before everybody leaves? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Destin. The vote is unanimous, so moved. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We still got a lot to do, and it is way past my dog's bedtime. Back in their seats. We're waiting on a few council members here.
Mayor, we'll start the meeting. Let's get us sit down.
All right, everyone.
Now that we have cleared the room.
As we start the meeting back, one of my campaign promises was never to have a meeting go to 10 o'clock. Well, I just failed that one. And we still have quite a few things on here. I think usually when everyone's this weary of the process, that things don't, tough
Get the attention
decision-making
that they
takes
need.
place. But what I hope now is that we go through the rest of this meeting and get home to our families. We start next with the city manager report, and if it was my choice, I'd cancel the rest of the meeting till tomorrow, but I can't, so let's go. Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4A is regarding low-speed vehicles, and staff has brought this back at council's request. Staff is looking for council to consider rescinding the current golf cart policy, then supporting the application of the current state statutes governing the use of low-speed vehicles, and then converting the proposed LSV roadways that are on the map, attachment 7, to allowed LSV roadways, and with the caveat of LSV use being restricted to the farthest right-hand lanes on Airport Road and Main Street, and then instructing staff to bring this item back in the form of an ordinance for council's final decision.
So moved.
I have a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Any
Yeah,
concerns?
there's three different motions, so which one are you talking about?
So
There's two, there's an alternate, there's a recommended motion. and
this
there's
is
a-
alternate motion.
Mr. Destin said he did the good one.
Yep, alternate motion 1 is the one that I was quoting, that encompasses the recommendation of the sheriff's office.
Yeah, I'll go with alternate motion 1. I move that the council rescind the current golf cart policy, continue to support the application of state statutes that govern the legal use of low-speed vehicles, endorse the LSV map, included as attachment 7, instruct the staff to convert all proposed LSV roadways to allowed LSV roadways, and that LSV use be restricted to the farthest right-hand lanes on Airport Road and Main Street, and to instruct staff to amend the map as such and bring back to City Council an ordinance for adoption and enforcement.
I got a motion, got a second. Mr. Braden?
How is the public going to know that the left lane's off limits?
I believe there's words in there about signage.
I couldn't hear you, Rodney, I'm sorry.
How is the public going to know that they're not allowed to drive in the left-hand lane?
Thank you. Yes, we will include signage on those roadways that tell them that they are not allowed in the left-hand lane except to turn left or if the right-hand lane is obstructed.
And when they apply for their license, maybe we can encourage the county to have a handout or something explaining to them the low-speed vehicle routes that are allowable by law and the city of Destin. Is that possible?
Well, the license is through the state, but we can encourage them to hand out information, and we will have printed information to hand out, and we'll have it on our websites.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Overdeer?
Yeah, I think as long as they're going to have to obviously get into the left lane in order to make a left-hand turn, so that is okay.
It's just for travel.
That's included.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second. Ayes have it, so moved.
Item 4B is regarding the development of the city's Americans with Disability or ADA Transition Plan, and we are requesting authorization to negotiate and execute a task order being with Baskerville Donovan to perform Phase 1 work on this project for the city. Phase 1 work would include primarily pedestrian facilities in the city, such as sidewalks, crosswalks, stairs, ramps, truncated domes, and the things in that nature. staff picked this portion to begin this process with because if we get this certification back in place, it will help us with our grants. It will help give us a higher priority on grants, give us more points in the grant processes, especially with federal funding.
All right. I'll
Mayor,
entertain a motion.
Yeah, I move to authorize the city manager to negotiate with Baskerville Donovan Engineering and execute a task order to provide a pedestrian facilities assessment and development of a transition plan that is consistent with applicable federal law.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none? Vote unanimous, so moved.
We have item 4C, Harbor Capacity Study Steering Committee appointments. At council's request, staff solicited applications for membership on this committee. We believe we have 14 applicants, and we're asking for each council member to nominate one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, but we were just going to start with down
I nominate Jason Klosterman.
Mayor, may I add something?
You may.
I was requested to let you know that we received, the deadline for the application was last Tuesday. Today, we received another application from Mr. Bill McKissick, who is a member of the Harbor and Waterways Board. So your prerogative, you want to consider.
I think that being on the Harbor's Waterway Board, that would make him probably a qualified person to consider. And the fact that he volunteered probably shouldn't preclude him from not getting an opportunity, even though he's late to the party. But that's up to council.
Do we have more applicants than we have positions?
We have more applicants than positions.
And
All right, can somebody put the list of applicants up so we can see them? Yeah, I don't have that. Okay.
Braden?
It's late, I understand, sir.
Mr. Braden, could you repeat your nominee?
Jason Klosterman.
Jason Klosterman, let's just go ahead and make all the nominations, and can we vote for them all at one time? Is that good, everyone? Okay, Ms. Ramswell.
I would like to nominate Mike Buckingham.
Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Guy Tadlock.
Mr. Overdare.
Michael Dembowski.
Mr. Marlar.
Claude Perry.
Mr. Destin.
You know what? If Chad was here, I think he'd probably appoint his brother just out of spite.
I think that's a good choice.
But
let me do that one.
Okay, then I'll do John Stevens.
And I'll nominate Eddie Morgan.
I think we need Chatham. We're going to have to wait on Chatham for that last one, aren't we? Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Zunguzzi, do we have one from each category?
I think we're. Ray, could you?
I have them here.
Okay.
Just give them a minute. Yeah, you've got somebody from everything.
Steve, yeah.
There's somebody from every.
Yep.
Council, we just need I think
Big
we have.
motion to approve the nominated folks for the Harbor Steering Committee.
Second.
Study.
Seeing no further discussion. Ayes have it, so moved. Chatham can nominate his person later.
Item 4D is approval of the Food for Thought lease with a $1 per year annual lease fee.
I entertain a motion.
I move to direct city manager to execute the lease agreement with Food for Thought, Inc., commencing on March 16th, 2020.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. No further discussion. Ayes have it, so moved.
Item 4E is the first quarter financial and investment report. That item is in your packet. If you have questions, Mr. Farmer is here to address those questions.
Anybody have any questions? See none?
When are we going to get a report back from Raymond James? Just curious.
There's a report in there. For the first quarter, the investment earnings earned just short of $100,000 with about $9,000 in fees.
$9,000 in fees?
Yes.
When will we hear from them again?
Whenever you want them to come, if you would like them to come to the next meeting, I can ask them to be here.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll ask them to be here then.
Thank you.
Is that all? We don't need a motion or anything, right? Go ahead.
Item 4F is the Development Review System Software Update, and Mr. Pace picked a great night to make his initial presentation to council, so he is here to give that update.
Yes, Mr. Pace, we will gladly accept your 30-second presentation at this time.
EnerGov good? No, I'm kidding. I just wanted to break down a little bit of the process and progress we're making on EnerGov, the system that is going to transform our community development department, as well as the rest of the city. So I prepared just a few things for us to just look at real quick. Right now, we're talking about where we are in the phase of EnerGov. We have finished our access and define, kicking off our implementation, and now we're on the building and validating, which is actually configuring our system to the city. So we're making some great progress. I'm happy to say that all the departments have really stepped up. Very proud of the progress that everyone's making. So I think you should be as well. With Lewis's help and Webb and the rest of our steering committee, we have kept the project on track. And we have some screenshots of what has been installed, what I've been working with over the last 5 months with EnerGov to install on site here, our EnerGov system. What you'll see is kind of a back end. It is changing daily because of the implementation and processes that are being input by the staff. And you'll see some different various shots that are there. We don't have to spend too much time on them. There's a lot of configuration, as you can see. We also have worked very hard with GIS and the county to develop our map system that is a very integral part of EnerGov and going to be kind of the shining star of the program for the customer portal and also the back-end system. For our inspectors and code compliance officers, there are some applications that are built into our system, and these are the iPad apps. These are going to allow the officers and inspectors to be out in the field, and so we're going to have a lot more work to be done in the field than having to come back to the office. It allows pictures to be uploaded, just various things at the click of a button. It also allows voice dictation, so you don't have to sit there and type. Very easy to use system. It can also print out tickets and other items for code compliance. The customer portal, which is in process of being built right now, I did a kind of a mock-up of what the site will look like, but it will give citizens the access they need to log in to view permits on properties. They can search the maps, they can search different permit processes that we have, also sign up for their own account and track their own billing and things that are going to be online. So it's a lot of automation that's going to take place behind the scenes and free up a lot of time for community development staff. And that's pretty much all we are in EnerGov right now, but it is moving along very smooth and happy with the progress, and can't wait to show you more once we delve into the configuration.
Yeah, and this is fantastic. I've asked this question before, so I'll ask it again. Are we making sure that all of this is stitched up tidy, that we don't have to worry about ransomware attacks?
Yes. I'm actually in talks with Tyler to talk about some of their cybersecurity measures that can be put in place. It's a nominal fee from what I've seen in the market to really protect our systems. They have software as a service, and what they'll do is integrate with our systems to mitigate any of those issues and also stand behind us if there are any problems down the road.
Yeah, that's crucial, because what Mr. Denson was telling me what happened to Pensacola. They had to cough up $1 million to get their program back.
And it is a real threat, and that's one of the reasons why we were talking about the removable media policies and things like that. They really do help curb a lot of those issues. It may not be the greatest decision for people, or they don't understand it as well, but one rogue thing can put a damper on your day.
Your day.
Yeah. Yeah, my day.
Go ahead, Lance. Announcements.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Yes, and finally, I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Kozad, our new projects, grants, and contracts manager. Hopefully, he will return to work tomorrow after his first day of work with us. It's been an interesting first day.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Couple quick announcements. The dredging project is underway in East Pass after a lot of hard work by a lot of people, especially this guy next to me. The Destin Library is going to be closed on Friday for staff training. Destin Little League opening day is this Saturday. Their Little League parade will take place, always starts at the elementary school and ends up at the fields. The 2020 Destin Forward class will be joining us on Thursday, March the 12th in this room to hear presentations from both staff and the council. And we are putting bollards up down on the Kelly and Beach corner to keep our parents from parking in the right-of-way and blocking traffic up. So that's all I have, sir.
All right. I'll entertain a motion. Next is our consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Vote is unanimous. So moved. Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell.
Nothing.
Thank gosh. Can we keep the roll going, Mr. Mitchell? Because you got a bunch of stuff on your agenda.
Yes, I do, and I'm going to do it. I can't help it if we're late. Everything deserves the same amount of attention, whether it's 10:30 or 7.
Would you like to do it next time when there's an audience?
I do not. I don't need an audience.
Okay.
Okay, but I will thank the 6 folks that are here, truly hardcore, and thank you. Okay. As you know, we've been talking about towing, and the city manager was going to, I guess, take part of this. But in the last 2 meetings ago, he talked about towing and whatnot, and did we have the laws in place? And yes, we do have the laws in place, and I'm going to discuss that in a minute. The purpose of this is to give Joey the tools in his toolbox if needed. I'm not advocating that we become a tow city or anything else like that, but you heard all this stuff tonight about over here on Kruger's house. Well, if code enforcement or code compliance goes out there and they see the need to tow, it's not a safety violation necessarily. This will give us the tool in our toolbox to work. Under our city code 19-5, which is traffic and motor vehicles, section 19.5.53, A1E talks about signs and markings. Same 19-5-53, A2G talks about control devices and prohibited standing, and more importantly for towing, the same statute, 19-5-53, A2C2 specifically talks about towing vehicles. So I don't think we have to do anything else, city manager, but we were talking about, do we have the laws on the books? And yes, we do. And basically all we have to do now is, and I'll defer to you for a minute, our issue was towing. And the city manager and I talked, and I'm prepared to make a motion, one or two things. I know we talked about piggybacking off of the sheriff's office towing or do our own contract. So I think the appropriate thing to do tonight is make a motion with either or. Okay, I'd move that the city move forward with either piggybacking off of the sheriff's office contract and or going out for bids. Is that appropriate?
Or we could even call it going out for applications, because that's the process that the
Okay.
sheriff used. Yep.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Any further discussion? That's pretty quick there, wasn't it? Ayes have it, so moved.
And then my only other thing is just what are we doing with our TDC applications, city manager? We still on point with that?
Yep.
To get our 10%?
We received information from the TDC about a week ago. They have changed their due date. It used to be May 1st. They changed it to April the 10th. So we will be bringing that item back to you. I can't remember. Is it the 6th? Is that our meeting? Okay, so the latest you guys will see it is the 6th before we take it out there on the 10th.
Okay. And last but not least, I want a big thank you to the staff for two things. Number one, meeting with the city manager and the deputy city manager a couple of weeks ago, I suggested that they do a visual like they did on Intergov tonight, okay, and that was something on their agenda, but I think it goes a long way. If it had been another night where we had more time, I think everybody would appreciate it. But rather than just everybody hearing from Webb saying, oh, we're doing the same thing, this way, so please take it home and take a look at it, because they're doing a lot of good work. And last but not least, thank you for the Airport Road video, okay? Obviously, we've gotten a lot of things on social media, and the big thing is, if it's slowing down people and causing less crashes, mission accomplished, and let's just keep going forward with it. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Oberdale.
Yes, I would like to appoint Mr. Brian Leesfeld to the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. See no further discussion? Ayes have it, so. Anything else, sir?
That's all.
You the man. Mr. Marler.
Nothing that can't wait.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Destin's already got his pickleballs out, but what else you got?
I have nothing else.
Mr. Morgan isn't here. I have nothing to say. Land use attorney.
I'm good, thanks.
You got to call an executive session. Ms.
Nope.
Cobb.
Have to redo it, yeah. Okay.
Nice try, Kim.
Give me this.
Next time I'll throw ice water on you. Just wake you up.
I just did this last meeting, but I am requesting that the city council call an executive session pursuant to section 286.0118 Florida statutes in the cases of Point Mezzanine LLC versus City of Destin, Okaloosa County Court, case number 2019 CA 004010F, and Point Mezzanine LLC versus City of Destin, Okaloosa County Court, case number 2019 CA 003733F, and then the persons present would be myself, the city attorney, insurance counsel Bill Warner, and all city council members and the mayor. And the city manager, Lance Johnson.
Do you need a motion for that?
Nope.
Okay.
So that would be on the 16th at 6 p.m.?
5:30.
5:30?
Can we do 5:30?
Can do 5:30.
All right, 5:30 on the 16th. Mark it in your calendars. Sir.
Nothing.
Public comment?
They stuck around for a reason. All right.
I just thought you guys liked us and just wanted to hang out with us till midnight. Go ahead.
Sam Pearman, 4652 Destiny Way. I just want to take this opportunity to address this room full of people and remind everybody, besides being St. Patrick's Day, March 17th is the presidential preference primary. So everybody get out and vote. Early voting starts Saturday at Destin Community Center. We'll go from the 10th to the 14th, and Election Day is the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on up.
Name's Ronald Lee, 560 Calhoun. I enjoyed the theatrics today, but I really didn't have anything particular to say until I listened to the low-speed vehicle thing. As I understand, that's on Main Street in Airport. Is that right? Is that what I heard? Is there a, how slow are these vehicles going? What's the speed limit out there?
25 is their max. 25 is their max.
What's the speed limit on Airport and Main?
It's 35.
35, all right,
No, actually,
already.
wait, no, Main Street from Kelly Street to the stoplight is only 30.
But what my main concern is, we already use Airport and Destin Commons Drive as an alternate 98. How is that going to affect the travel? You know, I don't know if you've thought about the traffic problem. Because, yeah, exactly, that's what I'm thinking too.
Well, as an
So
owner,
I just really wanted to see if somebody had thought about that issue.
as an owner of an LSV, my top speed's 28. I don't plan on being on Airport Road.
Thank you. Go ahead. Sure.
I could leave it to later, but then it wouldn't be on the agenda. You spoke about a Development of Cities Americans with Disabilities transition plan. A couple of years ago, you asked for the things at the, where you cross the crosswalks to have the raised, right, and those raise up with, because they're adhesives. I was in South Florida earlier this year, and they do them with the brick pavers. And I was just going to make a suggestion that if you're switching those out, to maybe put the pavers in that have the raised versus those. Yes, thank you. That's it. Thank you. Oh, Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court.
Did we not change that when?
Yeah.
Did we change that when we changed our sidewalks to 4,000 PSI and that?
We did. We started putting some of those in already, the paver style, truncated domes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
It's been fun.
It's been real, and it's been fun, but it ain't been real fun.